Hey guys, good to see everybody again. This here is the FX Airguns Dreamline 30 caliber with their new power plenum and their new 123 twist barrel stuffed into the new Saber Tactical bottle chassis. And it all came to me by way of Utah Airguns. Now today I'm going to get you familiar with it. Then I'm going to teach you how to tune it. Then I'm going to walk you around this chassis. Okay, but before I do that, it's important that you have some context or some perspective on what this gun is. So you probably want to pause here, head over to my primary YouTube channel, the Airgun Exploration and Advancement channel, also called AEAC Home, where you can catch a full review of the FX Airguns Dreamline, which evolved into the FX Airguns Dreamline. So there's two videos over there to kind of catch you up. Okay, but the short version of that is the Dreamline and all of the FX lineup comes to us from Sweden. And the Dreamline is our industry's very first modular air gun. What that means to you is that they offer quite a big lineup of this model. There's a Dreamline Classic, there's a Dreamline Bullpup, there's a Dreamline Light, there's a Dreamline Tactical, and there's a Dreamline Base, and there's a Dreamline Aeon CZ, and there's a Dreamline Saber Tactical, and just a whole bunch of them. Prices start at about 1,100 bucks, but the big deal is you can buy any one of those guns, and then down the road you can morph it or transform it into any of the other guns. So instead of buying 3 guns, you can kind of start with one, and just like a Lego kit, you can build onto it, you can mix and match, you can swap, and you can get things exactly how you want. But the big deal with these Dreamlines, what makes them so popular, is they've basically answered the call of all of the serious air gunners as far as what they all want in an air gun. They want good value. You're starting at about 1,100 bucks here, which I get it is a lot of money, but in the air gun world, for what you're getting, this is offering a tremendous amount. Okay, the entire Dreamline, offering. Will come with, we'll offer different interchangeable barrels, so you can have 177, 22, 25, 303, or 30 caliber, and 357, and you can mix and match any one of those into any of the different guns. They all come with externally adjustable regulators. They all come with externally adjustable transfer port adjusters. They all come with an internally adjustable hammer spring, and a lot of them come with even an externally adjustable hammer spring. And what that means to you is it gives you a great deal of control over the power level, the noise level, the shot cycle, so that you can settle the gun down to make it really accurate. You can really boost up the power if you want to blast the tar out of something, you know, just 50 yards away. And you can even fine tune these barrels. They come not only in different calibers, but different twist rates so that you can make them work better with slugs, better with light slugs, heavy slugs, light pellets, heavy pellets, even finding combinations that work kind of good with both. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that more here in a few minutes. Okay, what you're looking at here, to give you an idea, if you follow through, if you go over to Utah Airguns, all right, and you get on their website, just to start you off so that you guys are familiar with what we've got in front of us here. Okay, you go up to their menu tab. You go to shop, that drops you down. Then you go to air guns, and then you scroll down to the bottom to FX, and then you scroll down to FX Dreamline, and that's going to show you all the different Dreamline base models that are basically available. And some of these are pretty well equipped, and when you get into them, you can pick out different things like caliber and stock and chassis and tactical kits, and anyway, we'll get into all of that, and moderators and so on and so forth. Now, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the FX Dreamline Saber Tactical Chassis air gun, which is what we're looking at right here. Has a $1,350 baseline price tag, which includes the gun and this big chassis that you see here, not to include this camera mount or this or the bipod or the scope or the moderator or any of that stuff. This one includes a $200 upgrade for the 480cc carbon fiber bottle you got here, instead of the long aluminum cylinder that comes with kind of the base model. So now we're at $1,550. Okay, this also takes advantage of their tactical kit upgrade, which is another 150 bucks. So now we're at 1,700 bucks. What the tactical upgrade or kit offers is an AR style safety, a Picatinny rail over the 11mm with 20 minutes of angle milled right into it to really help you reach out and to those really long targets. And what else did it? Oh, and it includes an externally adjustable hammer spring adjuster, which gives you external control over that internal adjustable hammer spring, which is right underneath here, and I'll show you guys that later. This also includes a $150 Dyna FL moderator. This is the Sumo. You can spend a little bit more, $185 for the Ronin, and get even a little bit quieter. And so you know you're up around the $1,900 price point here without a scope, mounts, and bipods. So you're nipping at the heels of an FX Impact, which is $2,200 or $2,300 bucks, okay? But I gotta tell you, I personally am gonna spend my money here, as I shared with you, like I would with the FX Crown, in the tuning guide that I offered on this channel, and the full review that I offered over on my other YouTube channel, AEAC Home. And we'll get into why. All right, so those are the broad strokes on the Dreamline. Let me just kind of walk you around this quick so that you know what you're looking at. So this is the shroud over the barrel. It simply unscrews, slides right off, gives you access to the barrel, and I'll show you how to remove all of that later. It will come with 1/2 inch UNF threads up here so that you can add a moderator of your choosing. You're going to want to, yeah, that's proper English. You're going to want to, probably because this gun is capable of over 95 foot-pounds of energy. I achieved that, and I'm going to show you how. That is a lot, right? What are you looking at over here? So you got a couple of gauges. This one here is, this one here is the regulator pressure. We talked about it having that externally adjustable regulator. This one here tells you how much air is remaining in the bottle. It is side lever cocking. Whoops, I thought I was tipping over here. There's the demonstration. It's very smooth. The safety works just fine. Okay, there it goes. Let me rotate the gun around here so you can see the other side. Okay, this is your fill nipple for the bottle. This is an externally adjustable transfer port adjuster. So what this is basically doing is changing the diameter of the port that leads into behind the pellet. So you're kind of you're kind of controlling velocity of the air. And we'll get into that when we get into the tuning. And this here again is that externally adjustable hammer spring. You'll see numbers on this side, letters on this side. The numbers on this side, you start at max, you work your way down. That's less power, less hammer spring tension. The letters are the exact same thing. They just kind of give you like a tweener in between like where the number would be. So if you didn't get exactly to where you wanted to going this way down the numbers, you can go this way with the letters and hopefully wind up where you want to. All right, so I think, yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. So magazines. So all of these Dreamlines come with the Saber Tactical High Capacity Magazine. Let me spin this around. You guys can see it. And these magazines, guys, are a godsend. If I open this up here, you'll see that the receiver is milled at an angle so that you can get this up in there. Okay, this is a 13-round magazine in 30 cal, right? And they're super, super easy to load. All you do is you take this little black kind of crescent here and you click it over to that position. You pull the cover right off. You rotate it around. Okay, you drop your first pellet right in there and then it holds. Then you load them all up and you drop your little cover right back on and you twist it closed and you put it in. This has been an excellent magazine. It held every slug and every pellet all the way through 45 on up to, God, this biggest one was like 65 or 70 grains. Yeah, 65 grains. No problem. The only thing it didn't hold is the Predator Polymag. But there's an optional single shot tray. Now I will tell you this single shot tray, it's a little piece of aluminum and it very simply just slides in here. Okay. And This worked fine for slugs, but I wasn't able to feed pellets through it or that polymag. They would both hang up on me. So, but not a huge deal. There was plenty of room just to kind of put those polymags in here by hand. But just something to be aware of. Then FX, I'm kind of giving you a heads up that might need a little bit of fine tuning. Decocking is super easy. That's how it's done. Now, because of these high capacity mounts, you got to get this, this receiver is milled with the scope up a good couple inches above the center line of the barrel. So you're going to want to get yourself a good set of adjustable scope mounts so that you can get on target without stressing out your scope too much at distances like, 15, 20, 25 yards, okay? I go with the sports match mounts. I absolutely love these. I haven't found anything better, and I've used everything. Part number on these is ATP72 30 millimeter adjustable elevation. Incredibly easy to use, totally rock solid, okay? And I've had really good luck with them, so I wanted to pass that on to you, all right? Okay, tuning. Let's dive right into it, okay? Because ultimately this is supposed to be a tuning guide. Now, there's a process. I've got OEM shot charts to share with you here, and then I was able to successfully put 3 different tunes on the gun. An eco tune, a pro tune, and a power tune. The eco tune, I wound up with like 95 shots at 55 foot-pounds, all right? The pro tune, I wound up with like 60 shots at 74 foot-pounds, and then my power tune, I wound up with 30 shots at 94 foot-pounds, and I had room to go. I just wanted to be conservative with the regulator so I didn't wind up breaking anything. Out of the box, I was right at 48 shots by 81 foot-pounds. Those are all regulated extreme spreads in the 10 to 20 foot per second range, where you want to be. And I'm going to share with you each of these tunes and the process I went through as far as achieving it, okay? So what you're looking at with this first shot chart, I'm going to read you the top so you understand the topography. It's the JSB 44.75 grain from 250 to 135 bar. This 480cc tube is a 250 bar fill, even though the side of your gun is going to say 230 bar because this comes standard with that long aluminum reservoir. So don't get tricked by that like I did. I actually had to do all these shot charts twice because I'm stupid. So 250 bar if you go for the carbon fiber bottle. All right. Transfer port high. And what that means, guys, is over here on this side, this is the transfer port settings. This is kind of like that aperture of how much flow we're going to allow into the gun. All right. Power wheel on max. So that means over here, power wheel is on the maximum setting. Okay. And the regulator at 150 bar, right? So this came out of the factory with 150 bar reg setting. Now the regulator in these FXs is called an amp regulator. It stands for adjustable match precision. It's really robust and it's really precise. Okay, but it's not indestructible. Just like with any other regulator, you don't want to push it much past 170 bar. I think 180 bar is what they build them to, and they recommend that you don't go past 170 because the gauges on these things are the furthest thing from perfect, and you don't want to make the gun go pop, okay? You don't need 180 bar to get 95 foot-pounds out of your Dreamline, all right? So, and we'll get into that. Okay, so this is what the shot chart looked like. 44 shots. I told you 48. 44 shots at 81 foot-pounds of energy. Oh, no, it is 48. We're going to get back to that. 44 shots at 81 foot-pounds of energy, 901 foot per second average with the 44.75 grain, extreme spread 24, standard deviation 7.4. Now, you always need a starting point so that you can kind of get a mental roadmap of where you are and where you want to go. All right, and this is how it happens. So I looked at this shot chart super carefully, and obviously, I think what we all immediately say is, well, I want more shots than this. So I start thinking to myself, well, how do I extend out this shot chart, all right? Without losing velocity, really, that's the key. Can I get it long and still keep it powerful, all right? But if I look really carefully at shot 1 through shot maybe 15, you'll notice that those first 15 shots run about 10 feet per second, 10, 15 feet per second higher than the rest of the shot chart until it falls off that 150 bar regulator, okay? Well, when I see an imbalance like this, where those first 10 or 15, the velocity is really high and then it starts to come down, I immediately think that my hammer spring adjustment is set a little bit too high. And if you're new to tuning, guys, I highly recommend you check out my full tuning guide on the FX Crown Continuum and the Air Venturi Avenger. Both are totally applicable to one another, and they'll really give you a good perspective on how to become a really good master tuner. All right, but there has to be a balance between. There's always like a tug of war inside the gun between your hammer spring adjustment and your regulator adjustment, and they have to work their way up together, and you have to work them down together. If you crank one up and leave one down, you're going to wind up with this kind of shot chart or this kind of shot chart. And so what you're doing as a tuner is you're looking for that harmony and that balance in between while achieving the velocity, power, and shot count and tightness of standard deviation and extreme spread that you want, while having also the harmony of a good, clean, snappy shot cycle, so that the gun feels settled when you shoot it. Because if you like really overpower it, you get everything inside fighting and out of harmony, you're going to have a gun that bucks around a lot, and it's hard to shoot well with. Okay, it may be powerful, it may be accurate, but it's hard to control and for you and me to make accurate. All right, so this told me that my hammer spring adjustment was a little bit high because I'm a little high up in here. So I can do two things. I can bring the regulator pressure up to help kind of balance out that high hammer spring, all right? Or I can drop that hammer spring pressure. Okay, now what's really nice about this tactical kit here and a lot of these Dreamlines and a lot of the FXs is you don't have to go inside the gun to do that, all right? Hold on. My Swiss Arca rail is coming apart here. Okay, you don't have to go inside the gun to do that. They have an externally adjustable power wheel. All right, stand by. We've gone mission critical. All right, now stay there. Okay, good. They've got this externally adjustable power wheel, okay? So if I want to reduce hammer spring tension, all I do is take this power wheel and turn it one click, okay? Now I'm between the 5 and the max, all right? We'll call that 5.5, all right? So here's chart number 2 with 5.5. All right, now I've stretched things out to 47 shots at 81 foot-pounds, all right? And if you look at those first 15 shots now when compared to this, they don't ride high and then kind of start running down low. Look how flat that line got. Now we're really consistent right around 900. Our overall foot per second average came up because the rest of this went away from being descending, okay? It actually rode higher and smoother. Okay, so our foot per second average went from 901 to 902. We picked up a couple of shots, and our extreme spread tightened to 23, and our standard deviation tightened to 4.5. All right, and that was all just from making a click on that external hammer spring adjuster. 250 to 135 bar, transfer port was on high, the power wheel was on 5.5, between max and 5. Hammer spring neutral, okay, and I'll get into that in just a second. I'm still at that 150 bar reg setting. All right, so just by making that little adjustment, I've gotten myself a better shot chart. It's got a tighter extreme spread, so I'm going to be more consistent with my velocity, which translates into better accuracy. I've got a better settled gun with better harmonics because they're not fighting one another. Everything's nice and balanced in here, and everything's looking pretty good. All right, so what do I mean by hammer spring neutral that you saw in these two charts? What I want you guys to do, and maybe I'll be able to kind of show you towards the end of this video, but I've already done it in another video and there's no sense in doing it here. It's not a big deal. It's going to take somebody brand new about 5 minutes and somebody who's done it a bunch of times before about 2.5 minutes. But this power wheel, the way this works, it's on like a cam. If you ever look at like a camshaft on a car, it's got that like oblong circle on it. And as I rotate this, okay, that oblong circle is pushing on that hammer, on that internal hammer spring adjustment, all right? There's a neutral position you want to find with this, okay? And I want to be careful on how I say this. You don't have to do the work to find it, because what I found out myself is that the first FX Dreamline, the FX Impact that I reviewed, the FX Crown that I reviewed, and now this new Dreamline, all of them have come to me out of the factory with what I call a neutral cam. And what that means is when I first start turning this right here, it doesn't grab that hammer spring and start moving it yet. It kind of floats between max and 5.5, okay? That's a good place to be when you start out, all right? That's not the case with this, because the tune you're looking at on the gun right now is the 95 foot-pound tune, and I'll get into how I achieve that. But go check out that FX Crown Continuum video. I take this off and I show you how to find that neutral cam if maybe you've bought your gun pre-owned, or maybe you bought it from a dealer and you feel like they fiddled with that internal hammer spring adjustment. Watch that video, take 5 minutes, get that cam in neutral, and let that be the starting point, and then you start your tuning from there. And that Crown Continuum tuning guide on this YouTube channel will teach you much, much, much more about that. Okay, so now we're rocking and rolling. All we've done is change this external power adjuster one click, and we've already improved things. All right, so I said to myself, well, that's cool. I wonder what will happen if we reduce that external hammer spring adjuster one more click, okay? Now in your mind, what you should be thinking is eventually I'm gonna reach a point where the regulator pressure is too high for the pressure that I'm reducing on the hammer spring. So you've got too much force on this end, not enough force on this end, and things are gonna start to get a little bit out of balance, right? So you wanna run this check for yourself so that you can see where you're at as a tuner. So there we go, I dropped it from 5.5 to 5, left everything else the same, all right? Shot another shot chart, and yeah, it stayed flat and it moved out to 58 shots, but the string itself is no longer what I would call a good tuned string. You can see that now those opposing forces inside aren't getting along with one another, and gone is our nice flat straight line without this spiky alligator tooth standard deviation and extreme spread, which is going to take away from harmony and accuracy and all the goodness you want in the gun. Okay, so I said, okay, I'm on to something now. This regulator pressure setting of 150, it doesn't really like this softer hammer spring adjustment, but let me run one more just to be sure, all right? So I want to run one more just to be sure. I drop it down to a power setting of 4, okay? And now we're all cattywampus, and you can see, look how much the velocity's dropped. So now my shot chart is doing this. Okay, we've got the regulator pressure really overwhelming what that hammer spring is able to do, all right? And you're really out of balance, okay? So what that means to you is that at this regulator pressure setting of 150 bar, okay, it comes to you from FX pretty damn well dialed in, because they know what they want to do with the gun, and they know. So basically someone at FX said, we want to take these 30 cal Dreamlines with the new power plenum. We want the end user to receive them at about 80 foot-pounds by 45 or 50 shots. And that's how they set up the gun. Okay? They set it up with that neutral cam. They set the regulator to 150, and that's it. Okay? And they've got this transfer port on high. The rest of the internals of the gun have been designed to perform for you guys without having to fiddle if you don't want to fiddle. Right? Now, if you want to fiddle, there is a lot of low-hanging fruit to be gained. All right, now buckle up. Here we go. So I wanted to come up with an eco tune because I hadn't seen anybody on YouTube come up with an eco tune for a 30 cal FX. Everybody wants 100 foot-pounds out of the thing, all right? But so I wanted to do that. And so I basically pulled a number out of my butt. I said, well, to get down, to lower that threshold of hammer spring and lower that threshold of regulator, I'm going to just drop it to, I'm going to drop that regulator pressure to 100 bar, let's say. I mean, I kind of pulled that out of my butt. I knew that from my work with the Crown that 110 bar and 120 bar were good regulator settings. That amp regulator performed just fine with that. I knew from my context and my experience with my Air Venturi Avenger that regulator ran great around 11 and 1200 PSI. So I've got this thing in my head that regulators can perform well at lower pressures. Everybody needs to get away from this thing where I'm going to crank up, I have an externally adjustable regulator, I'm going to crank up that pressure. I would encourage you to get away from that and look at that externally adjustable regulator as an opportunity to lower pressure, settle everything down in the gun, and get yourself a real sweet shooter. All right, and this is how we do it. So I dropped that externally adjustable regulator pressure to 100 bar. All right, and the way that's done is so easy. Let's see here. I need a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. All right, this is the regulator right here. This is your gun's regulator. In the bottom, it's got a little 2.5 millimeter Allen. Stick it up in there. Okay, lefty loosey, righty tighty. If you turn it to the left or counterclockwise, it's going to increase regulator pressure. If I turn it to the right or clockwise, it's going to decrease regulator pressure. One of the cool things about these amp regulators is you can increase or decrease regulator pressure without having to degas the gun. And that's a huge deal and a huge time saver. What you do want to do is make sure you're not moving more than a quarter turn at a time when you do that. And then with each adjustment, I dry fire the gun 5 times to get everything kind of balanced out and settled inside, and then kind of look where you are and go from there. That's all there is to it. And don't go over 180 bar. And if you're smart, you won't go over 170 bar. Because like I said, these gauges are not the greatest. But I hear that there's new gauges coming. So can we get an amen? All right, so same pellet, 44.75 grain pellet. 250 down to 100 bar, because I've set my reg now down to 100. So the power is going to kind of run to 100 and then fall off that reg. All right. And lo and behold, I got 95 shots at 62 foot-pounds with a 789 average. All right. So extreme spread 68, standard deviation 14. All right. Not what we want, but now we're on a good path. Now, if you look at this shot chart really closely, not only does it look like an alligator mouth, which is what we don't want, okay? That tells us that there's too much openness inside. Either the hammer spring is too mushy or the regulator pressure is too low because you don't have enough force on the two sides to keep everything tight and to keep internal velocities up and to keep that harmony snappy. You kind of get, it's kind of like trying to blow through a coffee mug. You just get that like, oh. You know when you go to the doctor and you have to do that like test where they test your lungs and you blow into that tube for as long as you can. There's no resistance there because everything's kind of too loosey-goosey. So that's the first thing I saw that I said, well, we need more force on one end, the other, or maybe both. Okay. The other thing I noticed is if you look at this carefully, it is a clearly descending shot chart. So I said to myself, well, I'm not going to mess with the hammer spring adjustment, because I'm not really mad at this 800 foot per second range. That ain't a bad thing, right? But I can see that there's not enough pressure on that hammer spring as a whole. So my mind immediately goes to, I need to turn up that regulator pressure, okay, to kind of put more force on everything and see if I can flatten that out a little bit. By the way, my hammer spring, my power wheel is on a 4. I just put it to a 4 because I knew that I'm going to need less hammer spring adjustment, less hammer spring pressure to kind of get along with that lower reg pressure. And over here we saw what happened, right? We had that 150 bar reg and it started crashing and burning, you know, with that lower hammer spring. So we can either bring the hammer spring back up or lower the reg pressure. So I lowered the reg pressure and look at it, smoothened itself right on out. All right. So then what did I do and what happened? So knowing I wanted a little bit more regulator pressure, all right, I twisted that reg, or excuse me, before I go down there, I dropped that hammer spring to 3. I'm getting ahead of myself here, all right? And something really interesting happened. Now things really got stretched out. I got 109 shots at 52 foot-pounds of energy from 250 bar down to 100 bar. My ES got nice and tighter, 34 feet per second. My standard deviation dropped to 8.57. And you can see here, this chart, those alligator teeth are getting, it's like somebody went and kind of ground the tips off. They're getting a little bit softer. And that's what I want to see, all right? But I've still got this descending type deal. If you look really closely at shots like 1 through, let's call it 36, I'm kind of riding up here around like 750. And then the rest of the shots, it kind of falls off and it kind of runs down here lower. So like we talked about earlier, if you want to get this half up or this 2/3 up, let's come up on that regulator pressure a little bit and see what happens. All right. The other thing I did you'll want to notice is I dropped the transfer port to medium. All right. And let me share with you why I did that. So like I'm a car guy, and I think a lot of you guys are probably car guys. You remember back in the day when we used to port our heads, my generation, it was porting the Honda heads. Some of you older guys, it was porting your Chevy and Ford and Chrysler heads. And there was a point at which you would open up that port and you would have so much flow that you would lose velocity. So you'd open it up too far and you'd lose that velocity and started losing horsepower. That's kind of the beautiful thing about this transfer port adjuster. I can bring this down to medium and it closes that aperture so that these lower reg pressure settings and these lower hammer spring settings, I can maintain the velocity through the inner workings of this gun, all right? So bringing that transfer port down to a medium, dropping the power wheel down to 0.5, okay, there's minimum, between min and 1, right there is gonna be 0.5, all right? And bringing that regulator up to 110 bar to kind of get rid of that, you know, that 2/3 where it's kind of slowly descending. Now, look how flat that is. My alligator teeth are gone. My descending shot chart is gone. It's all done at a compromise. I'm at 747 feet per second average, okay? But you got to remember, you're slinging a 45 grain hunk of lead, right? 55 foot-pounds by 95 shots with an extreme spread of 17 and a standard deviation of 2.5. That is a sweet shooting gun. And if you're worried about that 747 foot per second average, look at what a 45 grain pellet will do to like a dove or a squirrel at 55 foot-pounds, and know that when you go out for the day, you've got 95 of them before you have to recharge, okay? The gun is also going to be really settled, really calm. It has a nice light cough. It's quiet. It doesn't buck around when you shoot it. This is a great way to own an FX Dreamline 30 cal, right? So really quickly in review, I want to make sure you guys are following. If my shot chart is a little bit high in the beginning, bring your hammer spring pressure down. If you have kind of a descending thing like this, you can bring your regulator pressure up. You can work them both together. It's like a seesaw, all right? But once you get in there and tuning and start running these, you'll see that all of a sudden you'll make an adjustment. Like I'll bring my hammer spring down, and then all of a sudden that little deal that was up here comes down here, and now we have a nice even shot chart. But we have to go up together and we have to go down together, all right? So that's an eco tune. Great hunting tune, say inside of 50 yards. I'm not going to want to shoot a 45 grain projectile out at 100, moving at 750 feet per second, because it's probably going to have too much drop. But inside of 50, 60 yards, that's probably going to be a great option for you. Right? So then I had my mindset, well, I want to come up with a pro tune. So what is a pro tune? Well, a lot of people don't know it, but see if I can find a picture for you. Yeah. A projectile that is shaped like that, like a pellet, right, likes to fly through the air between 850 and 880 feet per second. That's kind of the sweet spot. If you can get away with 850 because the winds are down, the gun's going to be easier to shoot. It's probably going to fly nice and straight and true. Sometimes you got to push them up closer to 900 because the winds are up, but you might lose some of that stability. But that's kind of where you want to live. Like when you go to Extreme Bench Rest, Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge, the Pyramid Air Cup, the guys that are walking away with the big money, you know, you're not allowed to use slugs in those events. Excuse me, the people that are walking away with the podium finishes and the big money, they're setting their air guns up to the conditions. And you may see them push as high as 9, 910, 915 with a pellet, but they don't want to be there if they don't have to. They'd rather be 850, 860, 870, because the gun is easier to shoot well. And there's no sense to go up here if you don't have wind you're trying to fight, all right? Because you'll do better with a more docile platform. So here's a pro tune. All right, that was where I wanted to be in my head with this pellet. I wanted to be 850, 860, 870, all right? Yeah. So my first one, same pellet, 250 to 135 bar. Transfer port now is back up at high. My power wheel setting is 5. My hammer spring on the inside is neutral, which just means I've left it in that factory setting, or I've bought the used gun, or maybe one from a dealer where they mucked with it, and I want to make sure I'm in that kind of neutral zone to start. All right. 135 bar on the reg, because I knew that 150 bar was getting me 95 foot-pounds, and we'll get into that. 160 bar was getting me 95 foot-pounds, and 110 bar was getting me 55 foot-pounds, so probably 135-ish with the right hammer spring is going to get me where I want to be. All right, so 48 shots at 76 foot-pounds of energy, 874 feet per second average. That is a sweet place to be with a Diablo-shaped pellet. In any caliber. Good place to live. Extreme spread, just 10 feet per second. Standard deviation, just 2.98 feet per second. Power wheel, 5. All right, so all I did was I spun my little wheel here to 5. Okay, because I knew that with my hammer spring adjustment in that 135 range, or excuse me, a regulator, 135 range, it's going to want that hammer spring force of 5-ish to be kind of flat, and I wound up pretty much hitting it right on the nose there. And what's so cool about this Pro Tune is not only is the velocity really choice for having a really accurate, stable pellet in a docile shot cycle, but an extreme spread of 10 feet per second over 48 shots, that's where you want to be when big money's on the line. All right, so where did I go from here? Well, if I wanted to string that out, like maybe, I don't know, maybe 48 shots wasn't enough, or maybe the gun still felt a little bucky and I wanted to settle it down, right? I got to bring down these adjustments to settle the gun down a little bit more. All right, so what did I do? All right, drop my power wheel to 4. Left that regulator at 135 bar. It seemed really happy there. It sounded good, felt good. I had a pretty straight shot chart, a really straight shot chart at 10 foot per second extreme spread. No alligator teeth on there, and it rode right nice and flat at 874 feet per second. So I didn't want to muck with that too much, but you can use this power wheel to see where you're at. Go up 1, go down 1 on that hammer spring, and it's going to get better, it's going to get worse. It's hardly ever going to stay the same. All right, got better. All right, I dropped it down to 4. Now I'm 60 shots at 74 foot-pounds of energy. All right, this one, 76 foot-pounds of energy. So I only lost 2 foot-pounds of energy, and I picked up 10 shots. And I still was able to do it with an extreme spread of 13 and a standard deviation of 2.9. Nice and tight, nice and flat. So this kind of gives you an idea, guys, of why it's so important to be able to control regulator pressure and hammer spring. And transfer port. You know, it's you'll see a lot of these guns on our market that will have an externally adjustable hammer spring or an internally adjustable hammer spring, or maybe just like a transfer port adjuster. They'll call it a power wheel. But unless you can get in there and muck with the hammer spring and get in there and mess with the regulator pressure easily like you can on these FX lineup of guns, it's really kind of gimmicky is not a nice word, but it's taking a good idea and just giving you a part of the good idea and not giving you the rest of it, okay? All of these controls are imperative to being able to cross the finish line. All right, So I got my Eco Tune at 95 shots. At 55 foot-pounds, I got my Pro Tune. At 60 shots, at 72 foot-pounds. Two good tunes. Well, now I said, well, I better come up with a power tune because I seem to be the only guy on the planet that values a docile shooting air gun. And so I set out in search of a power tune. All right, here we go. All right, so I knew that, remember out of the box, we were about 80 or so foot-pounds with that power wheel on 5, with that neutral hammer spring, with a reg pressure that was pretty high, 150. When 160, 170 is about as much as you want to go. Let's call it 165, right? So how do you get from 80 foot-pounds to 95 or 100 when your external adjustable power wheel is maxed out, when your transfer port is all the way open, and your reg pressure is already at 150 bar, okay? Now I've got to go inside the gun and start adjusting the internal hammer spring adjuster. It's very easy to do, all right? Again, in the interest of saving time, I'm going to refer you to my FX Crown tuning guide because I show you how to go in there, and it's really simple. What it looks like on the inside here, guys, I'm going to take this out of the stock in a little bit where you guys can see it. But there's just a little Allen in here, and you're just going to turn it like this. I think it's a 2.5 or 1. I think it's a 1.5. And you're just doing it like this. Clockwise tightens it or increases hammer spring tension, which potentially will increase velocity. Counterclockwise reduces hammer spring tension and reduces velocity. And what you're doing is you're controlling the spring pressure that is on this cam. Okay? So I knew that if I wanted to get more velocity out of it, and I was already up on here on 5.5, I needed to start compressing that hammer spring to take advantage of that 150 bar that's in the regulator now. A little magnet. Taking advantage of the 150 bar that's on the regulator and the 160, 170. I knew I wanted to go with it to wring every little bit of power out of here that I could. So go to that Crown video. You'll see me take this off, take it out, and you'll see me making adjustments to that hammer spring. And it took about 15, 20. You can't make full turns because you're limited. It took like 15 or 20 of these, okay? And you want to go light pressure until you feel like, you know, you're starting to get some resistance. Then grab this power wheel and start turning it, all right? If you go too tight on this internal hammer spring adjuster, this will bind up, okay? It won't turn well. I've got this thing damn near maxed out right now. Watch as why this isn't, you know, it turns okay, but when it's in a neutral setting, it turns like really stupid easy, okay? But I had to darn near max out this internal hammer spring to get this 94 foot-pounds out of the gun that I'm about to show you. So I go clockwise on this until I start to feel some tension, and then I backed it out 3 or 4 full turns. To start, when I say full turns, I mean like, you know, like crescent turns. To take some pressure off of that cam in there so that this would move freely. If you go too much, you're not going to be able to move your power wheel. Right? And that's not good for anything, not good for a lot anyway. You don't want the inside of your gun fighting itself to reach these high power levels. Okay, so power tune, same pellet. Okay, from 250 to 160 bar. My transfer port is on high, so maximum flow. My power wheel is at max, and my hammer spring, my internal hammer spring is near max now. And that's what I meant by why I tighten that internal hammer spring until, not at stop, but you can feel like, okay, that spring's coming to the end of its travel. Then you back it out 3 or 4 turns, make sure that you can run that power wheel. So it's all kind of conservative and smart still. All right, 160 bar on the reg. I knew I was making 80, 81 foot-pounds with 150 bar reg, so I knew to get up that with that power wheel on max. So I knew to get up there, I was going to need to run that reg a little bit higher. All right, what do we wind up with? Well, 29 shots at 89 foot-pounds of energy, 947 foot per second average with those Diablo-shaped pellets. And what do we know? That's probably not a good place to be, because these want to be 850 to 880, pushing 910, probably maxish, to fly straight. This is a great place to be for slugs, okay? For these FX hybrid slugs, for all these slugs from Nielsen Specialty Ammo, NSA, America, okay? Because these slugs are going to be 50, 60, 70 grain, 45 grains for the hybrids, you know, so you want that power to work well with the weight. Also, that slug's not going to seal in the barrel quite as well as a pellet, so the velocity isn't going to be as good with that slug. So if we're 950 with a pellet, we might be 935, 940, 925 with a slug. Just depends on the slug. Okay? Extreme spread of 7. Standard deviation of 1.9. Okay? Why is that extreme spread and that standard deviation so incredibly tight? Because the forces inside this gun are really working hard against one another. You remember duration of the camshaft and the duration of the timing with the valves moving in your engine from the hot rod days? Okay, you're really closing the duration window. So now that valve is snapping open and closed super quickly because of all the hammer spring pressure on it and all the regulator pressure on it. So things are happening really, really quickly. And that's what really smoothens out our line. So that could be a good thing, right? But it makes the guns tough to shoot well when things are that, you know, chutzpah inside the gun, right? So I thought to myself, well, I'm pretty maxed out here. You know, how can I get a little bit more power out of it? Well, a lot of times if you go up in pellet weight, you can squeeze a little bit more out of it. So I went up to the JSB 50 grain. 50.2 grain, again from 250 to 160 bar. Transfer port high, power wheel max, hammer spring on the inside, near maxed out, backed off those 3 or 4 turns. Now I'm at 30 shots at 94 foot-pounds of energy. A 919 foot per second average. That's probably going to work pretty good with a Diablo-shaped pellet. Those JSB 50 grains and those FX 50 grain pellets, probably going to be okay there. If not, back it off a little bit, right? Extreme spread 16, standard deviation 2.9. Nice and tight. All right, so what's the takeaway? The takeaway is it's mind-blowing that you can have one gun, an FX Dreamline, that is capable of upwards of 100 foot-pounds now. Why in the world FX decided that they should take the Dreamline and give it 100 foot-pounds is beyond me. Because this gun had very humble beginnings when it came out a couple of years ago. It was $1,000, you know, it was the cool Lego gun. It was all modular. You could tune them up to, you know, 50, 60 foot-pounds. Everybody was happy. But I guess you guys wanted more and they answered the call. So now you can buy yourselves an $1,100 30 cal Dreamline and tune it up to 100 foot-pounds if you wanted to. All right, but you've got that on one end, and on the other end, you've got a docile shooter with 95 shots at 55 foot-pounds. I can change barrels with it. I can change air cylinders with it. I can change stocks with it. You know, and it's just a tremendous amount of versatility. And it's super easy, and it's super fun to do if you always have that mental roadmap of my regulator pressure and my hammer spring. They need to be in harmony with one another. I'm moving them up together. I'm moving them down together. I'm going to change one, see what the other does. Change that one, see what this does. And it's really easy to find these little pockets, these little nuggets of sweetness that can turn into really good tunes for you. And they've made it incredibly easy with that regulator that can be adjusted up or down without having to degas, as well as all these external power adjustments. Okay, and what's cool is three of those 4 shot charts were without even going inside the gun and messing with that internal hammer spring. You can do a lot on that neutral cam and just taking advantage of your power wheel up and down and just moving your regulator pressure around to match where you're at on that power wheel. You know, get them in sync with one another. That's really all there is to it, guys. Nothing to be afraid of. Nothing that's tough. So it's been all good so far. If I have one bone to pick, it's that these gauges are really not good. The gauge to the tank is off by like 25 bar, and this regulator pressure gauge it's mentally ill or something. It's 10 bar one way the one day and 10 bar the other day. So that's why it's important to have a chronograph. And once you get it to where you want it, you know, just leave. Don't look at the gauge and say, oh no, something's happened. The gauge is just goofy that way. At least mine has been. But apparently FX is changing them. So that's good news. But it's important to know, even though the gauges aren't the best, that didn't hinder my ability to put really good tunes on the gun easily. You know, it's just get that mental roadmap going in your head and you'll be fine. All right, so I'm gonna walk you around this this new Saber chassis, which is super cool. But before I do, I want to talk barrels for a little bit. Barrel liners. So let me just show you this really quick. Just go counterclockwise on this shroud. Okay. This pulls right off, guys. Super easy to get to for cleaning. All right. This is what FX refers to as a barrel. And this is what FX refers to as a barrel liner. This slides inside of here. This barrel comes out very easily with two, I think they're 3.5 or 4 millimeter Allens. You loosen them, you slide this right out of the gun. Okay, you don't have to slide this out of the gun. This piece unscrews, and I'll show you this at the end, and the new liner just slides right in. You put it back together. I was doing this in my backyard at 25 yards between this 123 liner and this 137 liner, and I was getting like no point of impact difference. I was kind of blown away by that. Don't know if that would be the same for 50 yards, but at 25, it really kind of surprised me. All right, so FX up until 2 Fridays ago was running this 137 slow twist liner, superior liner in their guns. In the 30 cal, I'm talking specifically about the 30 cal. All right. And the reason that's important for you to know is this is the liner that's been winning all of the events. I think to the Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge last year where Johan Axelson won. I think Justin Welsh at the Pyramid Air Cup last year when he won. You know, these are guys that were shooting this liner. Matt Dubber's success, Ted Beer's success, and all the other people that have been on the podium with big money, with their FX Impacts and Crowns and Dreamlines and whatever. They were running this slower twist liner that's been in the gun up until 2 Fridays ago. Okay. The slower twist liner is designed to do well with pellets. So it's kind of very event specific. Pellets don't like a really fast twist on them like a slug would like. Otherwise, they tend to destabilize and start doing this. You ever see a pellet like corkscrew down to the, you know, the twist isn't right, or there's a crown issue, it's too dirty or not the right pellet, whatever. Okay. FX decided a couple of Fridays ago they really wanted to optimize these 30 calibers, these big 100 foot-pound guns to work with their 30 caliber FX hybrid slugs. So now the guns are coming with a 123 twist liner, which is going to spin that slug faster, which is going to give it more stability. Okay. And I want to tell you that Matt Dubber from Air Arms Hunting South Africa YouTube channel, if you guys didn't know it, he's done a lot of the work over the years in helping FX perfect these barrels. He's been a guy that's performed at a high level on the competition circuit, spends a lot of time hunting. I actually WhatsApped him last night at like 5:30 or 6 p.m. my time, and he was just waking up at 4 a.m. to go hunting in South Africa. So the guy is freaking committed, because I wanted to compare notes on what he was seeing with this new liner. So I'm going to share with you what I've seen, and then I'm going to play for you Matt's response to me, and we'll go from there. But I ran a simple test. Now, I ran this test at 25 yards, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because if you've watched any of my reviews in the past on these guns, we all know that a slug may shoot 5/8 of an inch at 50 yards, but then it goes on to 100 yards and it shoots like 1/2 inch or 3/4. Or it shoots like 3/4 of an inch at 25 yards and then it shoots like a 1 inch at 100. That's just the goofiness of slugs, all right? So take this all with a grain of salt. So I set up a simple little test in the backyard, and I ran basically the hybrids, these 6 NSA slugs, the FX 47 grain pellet, the FX 50 grain pellet, the Daystate Emperor. What grains are these? 45 grain pellet made by JSB. All right, and I ran each of these through this liner because I wanted to see if, through the 2 liners, because I wanted to see if they're different. What was interesting was the liner they've been running up until a couple of weeks ago, the 137 twist, which is a slower twist, all right, did better with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these projectiles. And the new faster twist 123, whoops, did better with 3 of the projectiles. Okay, and what I came away with was just kind of a blanketing conclusion that at 25 yards, this slower guy liked the 45 grain pellets a little bit better. It liked these lighter weight NSA slugs a little bit better. But then when I went to the faster twist 123 that's in the gun, it definitely liked the hybrids a little bit better. It didn't care as much for the 45 grains, and it more liked the 50 grain JSB. So, you know, there's a little bit of this. And so I don't really know where I'm at. We're going to find out where we are, because if you keep your eye to my other YouTube channel, we're going to stretch things out to 50 and 100 yards and really get a firm grasp. But that's kind of where I am preliminarily. I don't even know if that's a word, and I wanted to share that with you guys. By the way, before I get too far ahead of myself, what did I do with that? All these tunes I just shared with you, this Eco tune, this Pro tune, this Power tune, I validated them so that I could feel good about them, and I wanted you guys to feel good about them. Okay, here's the Eco tune. That's 5 shots at 25 yards, 750 feet per second with a 44.75 grain pellet. Okay, that is on, yeah, that is on the 137. All right. Pro tune. There's 5 shots at 25 yards, 860 feet per second, 44.75 grain. This here is like 1,000 shots of tuning with the gun out of its chassis sitting on a bag, but without me really like aiming. But you know, I validated the 2 tunes, so I know they work well. Very docile shooting, very enjoyable to shoot. Okay, this jazz all here, this is with that 95 foot-pound power tune, where I'm twisting up the power and the results that I got. Whether that's optimal for these 2 barrels, I mean, who knows? I could be way off the mark there, so keep that into consideration as well. Okay. Oh, Matt. Yeah, so I kind of came away with that, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to call Matt. He knows more about these things than anybody. And I basically left him a WhatsApp message and said, hey, I know that you've been working really hard, and we're probably the brainchild behind this barrel switch. You know, what are you finding? Tell me what's going on. And I'm going to play for you what he told me. And this was at like 4 in the morning, his time, so I was amazed he's as sharp as he was. That guy's got a great mind. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so I actually wasn't involved in the decision to go to the 1 in 23. I think personally that the 1 in 37 is actually better for pellets. Although I say that being a little bit biased towards long range shooting. The 1 in 37, or I just call it a 1 in 40 because it varies slightly from batch to batch, so it's around 1 in 40. That is the barrel that's won all the competitions. Because there's very little spin imparted on the pellet, if there's a strong crosswind in a competition, it doesn't affect up or down movement at all. So you only have to deal with a bit of right to left movement, but you don't have to deal with any up or down, and that makes it much, much easier to score high in a competition. So I personally favor the slow twist barrel. The idea to move to a 1 in 23 was basically so that people could shoot hybrids out of it as well, or light slugs, because the 1 in 40 or 1 in 37, it's a little bit slow for slugs, for you may get lucky, pit, but I think you definitely need a faster twist if you want to shoot slugs consistently, especially the hybrids. So my personal opinion is that the slow twist was better for long range shooting for pellets. When it comes to close range, 50 yards and under, I'd say the 1 in 23 would possibly be even better, but not many people need to stack a 30 cal pellet on top of each other at 50. It's more a long range gun. So don't quote me on this, but I do believe that FX plan to keep the 1 in 37 as a...
They are. I confirm that. So these liners, by the way, if you guys don't know, it's $110 for a liner if you want to play with different twist rates. You can get them at Utah Airguns. Sorry, I interrupted you, Matt.
Slow twist option. It may not be standard because I think they want the standard barrel to be versatile and you to be able to shoot a lot of things out of. So the standard barrel that comes with guns, maybe the 1 in 23, but the slow twist option, I know they want it to be available. I'm certainly pushing for it to be available so that if people want a competition-specific barrel that they can use at 100-yard bench rest and they may feel like they have a bit of an edge with JSB pellets, then that's the one that they can get. So hope that clears things up. I haven't really been involved with the barrel thing over the past year or so, so I'm also learning things as you are. I think the whole superior liner thing has confused a lot of people, but I think it's for the better. Just from personal experience, seeing how well the superior liners shoot, they've obviously made some good changes. But yeah, as far as the twist rate thing goes, I think slow twist is almost always better for pellets, especially at long range. And faster twist is, I won't say always better for slugs, but especially for some of the heavier slugs, you definitely need it. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, Matt.
All right, so I shot him one back, and yeah, I mean, I was confused. I even saw the press release, and I was a little bit confused because I had my findings, and then I read the press release, and long and short of it is this. In this big monster 30 cal, they're trying to optimize the gun for hunting because by far and by large, most people are going to be buying this for long range hunting with heavier slugs, okay? If you want to take it to a competition, spend the extra $100 where you're only allowed to use pellets and shoot this guy and get this guy. It'll still work pretty good with slugs. I've run these guns with, that liner and slugs and got 1-inch group at 100 yards. It really just depends on the wind. So I volleyed him back, asked him a few more questions, and he came back with this.
Yeah, the problem with a very slow twist like the 1 in 37 with slugs is in good conditions they might shoot okay, but the moment you've got a strong turbulent wind or something like that, any kind of destabilizing force, like maybe you're shooting them a bit too slow or a bit too fast or something, they will start to wobble and they'll lose their BC and they'll just get taken by the wind. Whereas a faster twist, that's a lot more likely that they'll stay stable even in very turbulent conditions. So I think that's why they wanted to go for a slightly faster twist. I've noticed the same thing with certain slugs where they shoot amazing out of a slow twist barrel, but only in perfect conditions. But the moment there's some kind of destabilizing turbulent wind or something, they start to wobble and they start to lose stability. So yeah, I think that's the thought process behind it. But I fully agree that I think the slow twist barrel was something special, and I would be quite bummed actually to see it as not being the standard barrel. But I guess I do actually think the hybrids are such a big deal, especially in 30 cal because of their weight, and because of their high BC and their weight. That combination of that lightweight setup, I think that if the 1 in 23 can shoot the hybrids well, that's a massive advantage. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of people buying the Impact and the Dreamline or all those guns just to shoot the hybrids. I think we're going to see a lot of that. So yeah, not sure what to think about the whole thing, but as long as both are an option, then I think that's good. So let's see.
So we kind of came away with, you know, with that same general feeling. I think the way I'm going to get comfortable with this, guys, is if you're investing $1,100 or $1,900 in an air gun, you know, you're like the Formula One race car team owner that's trying to squeeze every little last bit of performance out of your gun. And you want to take it from great to like stupendous, all right? It's all great no matter which way you go. But if you want the control, you want to reach out, you want to be able to make it work with all different brands of slug and pellets, you know, these options and this tuning platform all need to be in here. That being said, if you're new to this, I don't want to discourage you from investing in something like a Dreamline. If you were brand new to this sport, I would highly recommend a gun like this because you can take it out of the box, shoot it just how it came to you, and it'll perform very well at 50 and 100 yards with a lot of different ammo, okay? But if you're the guy or gal that wants to go to a competition where literally $10,000 to $20,000 is on the line for a winner, which is where our competitions are going these days in the airgun world, you need this flexibility and you need to be able to wring out every bit of performance out of your gun, and an extra $100 one way or the other to figure out how to make it work best for you and your conditions is a no-brainer. Okay, so let me show you quick how to change these liners. It's crazy easy. I'm going to actually change this here a little bit so I have better balance. Yeah, I think that's probably a better balance point. Right there. And then we'll get into this Saber chassis. I'll walk you around it, show you everything. All right, so this liner comes right out. You just need a 10mm wrench and put it up here on the end. And you go counterclockwise. Okay, usually one little quarter turn and it loosens it, and now I'm just unscrewing it by hand. Okay, come on, and there's the end of the liner. All right, it's sitting right in here like so. Okay, now the first time these can be a little bit tough to get out, so what I like to do is I like to take a piece of cardboard and wrap it around the end and get myself a little bit of little pliers like here, grab it like so. Okay, and gently rock it back and forth while I'm putting pressure this way. Oops, let me cock this a little bit just to make sure my bolt probe isn't in the way. Okay, and come on, guy. All right, so you can see it's working its way out now. So I'm going to get a little bit better choke on it, a little bit better grip on it. Okay. Once I get it a little bit further, it's just going to slide right out. And hopefully I don't fling this pliers across the house. It's coming. Come on, baby. There it goes. All right. So then all you do is slide it out. Okay, there it is. A little 123 on the side. And what's really cool is once you get it into this place, they're super easy to clean. Like there's no O-rings in here, so if you want to get aggressive with the big boy solvents, you can. And it's just as easy to clean in the gun. Just running patches through it and pulling it out. Just unscrew the shroud and you're just pulling your patches out the end of this guy. You know, and it's kind of a no-brainer. Put it back together. Reverse is true. Just push it back in like that. Put your little thread cap back on. So you can change these liners, remember, in just moments. Now, remember I said earlier that you can change the caliber of the barrel as well as just the twist rates. Now, when you change the caliber, you have to change the bolt probe, which is super easy. And there's different length barrels. This is a 600mm. They have a 700 and some shorter ones as well. I think the barrel kits are like $350 and $400. And I think you get the barrel, the liner, the bolt probe, a new shroud that's the appropriate length and thickness. Check out Utah Airguns, and again, you just have all this flexibility and versatility. I'm not going to over tighten this. Just going to go till it's slightly snug. Okay, and you just take your shroud, Slide it right back over. Okay, and clockwise. What's happening is up here at this end of the shroud is grabbing those threads, those remaining threads that were sticking out. And that's how it's screwing onto the gun. There's just a little O-ring on this side of it. I do want to take a second, talk moderators. This is the Donnie FL Sumo. This is the Ronin, okay? A lot of people were under the impression, I did some research online, that this Ronin is too big for the end of this, and it would destroy the accuracy because of the weight. As you can see, this is a free-floating rig here. I had great success with this thing, and this thing was phenomenal at swallowing up 40 foot-pounds or 94 foot-pounds. It just basically gave off like a raspy cough. All the noise came from the pellet or the slug landing into the rubberized box of rubberized mulch 25 yards away. I mean, that sounded like I had just taken a baseball bat to it. But as far as the noise output of the gun, I mean, I had no... This was good, really good. Don't get me wrong. Just the shroud was not great. It was pretty loud. So you probably want to invest in one of these. You can get an FX one, which is I think it's a $50 to $80 upgrade depending on the gun, or you can get the Donnie FL Sumo for $150, or the Ronin for $185. And Donnie FL actually makes the FX one, or it's his design. I think it's being made at the factory in Sweden. I don't know, but you've got a lot of different options there. This is a 30 cal moderator, and you'll probably want to take advantage. And it's nice to have some weight out here too to settle down the gun when you're trying to manage 55 to 100 foot-pounds of energy. All right, I need to take a deep breath and talk about this Saber chassis. So this Saber chassis is brand new. By itself, if you guys just want to buy it outright, you're in the $575 price point. And you buy the chassis specific to the gun. This one's for the Dreamline. There are more coming, okay? And the chassis will be specific to the Dreamline bottle or the Dreamline cylinder. And it will come with this lower tray here to fit either the cylinder or the bottle. I don't know if you can buy this separate. Actually, it goes like this. And the way this secures is very simply a couple of Allen screws right at the bottom there. So it's really easy for you or the factory to make that change. Now, as part of the Dreamline, remember it was $1,350 for your Dreamline in a Saber chassis from Utah Airguns. So it's an option to get it directly from that. I think what's going on behind the scenes is there's like a little bit of a credit given from the factory to the dealer to kind of replace the stock from like a laminate walnut or synthetic, you know, to up to here, so that you're not absorbing the full price type of thing. Because obviously $1,350 minus $575 is a lot less than what a Dreamline costs, starting at $1,100. Okay, so oh my God, there's so much stuff to talk about. Let's just go tip to tip. I think that's the smartest way to do it. Up here on the front, there is a Picatinny rail. Okay, and I've just got a regular old AccuTac bipod attached to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 4-slot Picatinny. All right. Okay. Moving back from the Picatinny, this is where things get really, really interesting. So I'm obviously a camera guy, right? You got to know as much about video and audio and cameras to have a YouTube channel about air guns as you do air guns. So I thought it was really neat that Saber built into the bottom of this chassis what's called a Swiss Arca rail. Now the Swiss Arca rail is for cameras. All right, I'm just gonna set this aside here for a second. All right, this is a camera tripod, all right, just like you would buy for anything else. This screws to the bottom of your camera. It's a little 1/4 inch deal, and then you clamp that on there, and you have a quick detach for your camera, right? They have built into the bottom, Saber's built into this bottom of this chassis, a Swiss Arca rail that runs from one end to the other. what that means to you is if you guys are out at the dairy farm getting rid of those invasive species of pigeons, you want to set up like a big tripod, you know, where you can just stand there. You know, you put a liquid ball mount on the end or a little swivel mount on the end, you know, and I've seen people do this. And they're just running, they're gone off of that tripod, okay? Or FX Airgun sells a cool little like chair that you can sit in, and you can set up your camera tripod like on that chair and just swivel around and do your deal like up on a silo or whatever. So there's some really cool things going on by having a Swiss Arca rail built into the bottom of your gun that you can do. Now, they've also put here, just like for a camera, normally this would screw into the bottom of your camera. You can screw this. This is a 1/4 inch thread camera adapter right into the bottom of the gun. Okay, I wouldn't recommend that for this bipod because this is 11 pounds right here and that's too much for this. But if you had a heavier duty bipod and you didn't want to go right to the Arca rail, you could also use that 1/4 inch adapter. I would still recommend you go right to the Arca rail. It's a much sturdier setup. Okay. I'm going to turn this back around. All right. And it just drops in there. And you just tighten it. Okay, am I good? No, I tightened it. Not in there. Open up, baby. All right. There it goes. Okay. So, continuing down the side, you guys will recognize these in here. These are M-locks. So if you wanted to add like a pick rail down the side for a flashlight or whatever else, a laser, you could do that. This here is channeled for T-nuts. You can do the same with that. If I flip it over on the bottom, this is an M-lock. This is just for weight savings. But you've got M-lock running down the side of both of these bad boys. All right, so super innovative. All right, so where are we at now? So I guess let's just start right here. So the stock takes advantage of a collapsible design. All right, so you'll see a button right here. You depress it, and this just swings over. And you'll see there's a super powerful magnet right there. Okay, and what I got to do, well, I'm going to take you through all this in a second, but I just want to show you how it's closed, how it closes. Okay, you got to clear this fill nipple. All right, and now look at that. Right now I've got a collapsible deal. All right, I can get in here like this, you know, get the pistol scope on it, be doing my thing, you know, out at the dairy or whatever, or I just want to stuff it in a backpack. You can put a much shorter barrel on here if you want to. Go 2.2, 2.5, and still get plenty of power out of it, and you've got this little collapsible short deal, all right? But it just magnetizes to the side. Just like that. Okay. Okay. Now something interesting I noticed I wanted to share with you guys, lockup is super tight. You guys have seen me review the Air Arms S510 TDR. You've seen me review the Ataman BP collapsible pistol. I think it's called a BP-17 or ATP-17, whatever. Okay. I had some challenges with those because this joint wasn't rigid enough. Not so with this thing, okay? This is 10.9 pounds, everything you see here. Well, not the two stands, but scope, mounts, bottle filled with air, magazine, chassis, gun, okay? So you need a substantial chassis to tame 100 foot-pounds of energy. And this did a phenomenal job of it, okay? Now, there was this little bit of movement right here, but because this was all so planted, where that gave me some problems in those other two designs, it gave me no problems in this. I had no challenges with accuracy because it's all so well planted. All right, so wanted to bring you through that. Okay, so let's move on down here. So we have an adjustable, let me get this more in front of you guys. An adjustable comb. a multi-adjustable butt pad. And here's how it works. So the comb, you've got these little nuts here, these little knurled knobs to tighten it so that it's not moving up and down. So I'm going to loosen each of them a quarter turn. And then over on this side, it's got a little button. Yeah, you just touch the button. Move it to wherever you want. Okay, then I come back over to this side. And you don't have to go crazy tightening these. I actually spun one inside of itself. All it is like some kind of ballistic polymer with like a stainless screw like glued to the inside. And if you overcome that pressure too much, you're gonna have problems. But it takes very little pressure to keep this from moving around. Okay, the same design is for this extendable butt pad. I'm just going to loosen those up a little bit. Okay, and then right here, push down on this spring. And then you've got all these little notches cut in here for different distances. Whoops. See? Okay. I can also adjust the height of this by turning this clockwise. Now this whole thing slides up and down. When I was on the bench with this, I put 1,500 shots through this gun doing all the shot charts. I had it living up here the whole time. And it was freaking fantastic. I loved it. Nice and solid. This little end piece even moves. It's kind of hard to see, but you've got a little collapsible deal right here. I'm going to just turn around and put it on the counter. I'm starting to look ridiculous now in front of y'all. Not that I didn't before. Okay. So here it is. There's a little spring compressor here, or a little compressed switch. And then you can see I can pick any one of these slots to put this in. Okay, super, super nice deal. So this is a great setup on a bag. That's going to be a great setup, you know, in the field. And, you know, in addition, you can collapse the whole thing so it turns into a little bit of a pistol. There's some nice rubberized gripping here on the back. I've never seen this before, and I freaking love this. Because one of the ways you can make an air gun really inaccurate is with too much shoulder pressure and too much cheek pressure. So I love that they did this. It kind of isolates the design a little bit from your shoulder and helps you settle things down. Now this here on the bottom, this is actually a bag rester. So if I'm on the bipod up here, this is gone. That's the way I did all of my tuning and all of my accuracy testing so far. I was on the bipod and then I was on the bag. And it was super easy to just kind of slide that bag where I wanted to control the height. But you can simply unscrew this if you want to go hunting in the field with it. That being said, I don't know. This gun by itself, the engine, the receiver, the barrel, the bottle, the moderator, the shroud, you're at like 4.8, 4.9 pounds. Very lightweight. This chassis is for the guy or gal that wants to ground the gun for competition, prairie, you know, just that long range shooting where you can be settled. I don't know that I'd want to carry this around in the field, but you know, it's not bad. It's just that this is kind of edgy, you know, balance point is more here than here, you know, but you know what, it's fine. If you wanted the best of both worlds, you could totally make this work and look like the Terminator, and it feels absolutely just fine. Yeah. All right. What am I missing on the Saber? I don't think anything. I think that's about it. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was actually two things. Cleaning. All right. If you haven't caught on, and you see this in the comments all over here at the vlog and my other YouTube channel and AEAC Facebook and Instagram, where I've shared a lot of this information with you, if you feel like cleaning an air gun is important to you, all right, or cleaning your barrel is important, and you want the best product that also isn't the most expensive, look no further than just Patchworm, guys. I'm going to make this super, super easy for you. All right, just take a second and check this out. This will be the best $7.50 you've ever spent in your life. Okay, so Patchworm. Their website is called 2020 Concepts Patchworm. I came upon them myself years ago and just started using their product. Then they learned about me and just started sending me their stuff, and and I couldn't be happier. But this pocket field kit is $7.50. And what it comes with, this is going to blow your mind. It comes with the weed eater string, right? Big deal. We can all make our own weed eater string, right? But it has a little sharp pointy end up there. It has a little stopper right here so you can push patches on, all right? But it comes with a whole tin or a whole little plastic tub of collars. 12 gauge shotgun, 30 cal and 7.62, so it works for your ARs, you know, and your FX. There's 10 millimeter in here, so you know it works with your SIG or your Glock 20. There's 22 in here, so it works with your AR 5.56s and 2.23s. I mean, all the calibers are in here, and this one's even great, like I said, for 12 gauge shotgun. And what makes this so dang effective is you take the collar and you put it on here, and now you have a super tight tolerance, all right, between your cleaning system and the barrel you're trying to clean, all right? And I've tried, I own all the Deweys, I own all of the bore snakes, I own all of the Otis stuff, and I paid like 2 to 5 times more for all of that stuff back in the day, when I wish I had just spent $7.50 on here. Okay. Now 2020 Concepts is not geared Patchworm. I don't think they initially started for air guns. I mean, this is their tactical field kit for $357. They sell these for $556, $762. The different pistols. You get these felt plugs that have like abrasive in them. You get JB bore paste. You get ballistol. You get the string. You get the proper collar and these really nice kits. These are like 16, 17 bucks. I mean, I don't know how you can beat this stuff, but they make their own bags as well. They sell ballistol, which is my personal all-time favorite. They sell Patch Out by Wipeout, which is a little bit more aggressive cleaner. I wouldn't trust this on your O-rings. This is fine. But if you have the type of barrel like this that doesn't have O-rings in it, you know, you can go to a more aggressive patch out, especially for like a one year cleaning. All right. Just going to knead a little ballistol into there. Poke this onto here. Okay. And let's push it through our 137 here. Oops, my patch fell off. Come on, you. All right. I love this. It works just as well in the gun. Right now, this little collar is designed, it's a 7.62 collar, so it's perfect for 30 cal. Right? And it's going to press that patch nice and hard up against the walls of that barrel. All right, and I'm going to get it kind of out the front here a little bit so you can see it. Look at that. Look at the tolerances. That's where your cleaning power comes from. Okay? And it grabbed all that gunk out of there. So what I normally like to do is start with these smaller patches that they offer over there, but I always wind up using the Patchworm ultimately with larger patches. So I'll lube it. I'll get the barrel a little bit lubed up with these small ones. Okay, so now it's got some product working in there. Okay, now I'm really going to up the pressure. You can use, I'm going to use a 9-10 millimeter patch. This is a 2 3/4 inch up from the 1 3/4 inch Patchworm that you can buy at Patchworm. And I'm going to try to get this through this barrel. And if I can get it through this barrel, it's going to get a really nice tight clean on it. Just ball that up so that product spreads around. All right, here we go. Get a nice center poke. All right, here we go. Get yourself nice and choked up because it's going to be some pressure. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that dig in there. Pull all that garbage out. What's cool about these larger patches is your pressure, you know, comes up a little bit, scrubbing the walls of the barrel. But you get that tail on the end, which really just picks up all of that gunk. You know, you're increasing your surface area with the inside of the barrel. And I've got a whole video on barrel cleaning and why and how and getting your barrels in the right state of conditioning and all this jazz. But it's an amazing product. What you'll find is you'll shoot 2, 3, 4, 5,000 pellets through a barrel, and you'll be completely clean in 3 or 4 patches, just reversing them. So what? That's 6 to 8 pulls, and all those other things I've tried, just they take forever to get clean. Okay, all right, look at that. Okay, now if I wanted to, I could follow through with a 30 cal felt button. This is where we get really tricky. All right, so let me get my patch going here. A little bit wet. I'm going to lead with that little felt button. Put a little ballistol on there. Don't need a lot. Okay, now I'm going to get me some double cleaning, and they sell these felt buttons. They call them super intensive felt buttons. I don't know what's in them. It's like there's like little brass metal pieces mixed in with the felt to increase your scrubbing action. You do not want to use those on your O-rings. But what you wind up with is this. And this is just such a great cheap way to clean an air gun, and it works so good. So you guys know, for those of you that have been with me on the other channel for the last 4 years since the beginning, this is how I've always cleaned my guns. And I get the performance out of them. Oh yeah. Boop. Look at that. You can actually see what that felt button did. It got into those smooth twist X superior liner grooves and got things cleaned up. Got things nice and cleaned up. So I think what FX is going to do going forward is the 2 liners they're going to call the standard and the super. The 137 and the 123. So just watch for that. And just remember kind of like what you learned here and listening to what Matt said on the pros and cons to each. But I don't want you guys to be afraid that either one's going to be a handicap in either way. In either way, you're splitting hairs here. But either way, I intend to get to the bottom of it before I share with you the full review of this over on the other YouTube channel. Boop. Okay, and look how clean that's starting to come out. We're getting all that graphite out of it. This one hasn't held any lead. I haven't seen any lead chunks on here. When I cleaned this guy the first time, it had some lead chunks in there. Okay, but that's really all there is to it, guys. I hate getting on the forums and seeing you guys spend all sorts of crazy money when really the best product is right here in front of you, and it's also the least expensive. So I wanted to share that little cleaning tip with you, and it's just done great for me over the years. I guess we should close it out talking a little bit about the scope because we heard from Matt. So the new Element line of optics, the guys that are at the helm of the decision making as far as this product line are Matt Dubber, Ted Beer, and Shane Keller. All guys that have performed really high and been podium finishers at RMAC, EBR, Pyramid Era Cup traditionally over the years. FX Airguns is financially backing the brand, but those are the guys that have come up with the Helix, Titan, and Nexus. This one here this is their $400 price point scope. And if I told you what factory this scope was made in, which I'm not because I'll get in big trouble, your mind would be blown. But you're going to get the really good glass with it. I think they call it the APR, all-purpose reticle. The reticle in this is so freaking good and so freaking useful and just so phenomenal to just use. You got to look through it to see what I mean, or go research the product on Utah Airguns or on the Element Optics website. But they're doing some really neat stuff with glass reticles. The turrets have stainless steel internals. It's got better guts in it for the price point because they're offering like lifetime, unconditional lifetime warranties on here. And I have to say, for $400, everything on this scope has done exactly what I've wanted it to. The AO ranging has been dead on. Everything works good. The clicks make the reticle do exactly what it's supposed to do. The ocular was big enough to where an older guy like me with bad eyes was able to get everything nice and crisp. And it was just a total joy. But just remember, with this design, because you're a couple inches above the barrel, you're going to want to get your scope in an optically centered place, and then use some adjustable scope mounts to get on target and go from there. So that's probably been one hell of a vlog, and you guys are probably all asleep on me by now. So I'm going to finish cleaning my my Smooth Twist X Superior here, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks over on AEAC Home with a full review of this gun. We'll get it out to 50 yards. We'll get it out to 100 yards. I'm probably going to use this power tune with these slugs, and I may use that Pro Tune as well with some pellets. Boop. And we'll see how she does. We'll get a trigger test on it, although I know the trigger will be a pound. They always are with these FXs. Dual stage, match grade, all the good stuff. Very adjustable. And we'll get the sound meter on a couple of these different moderators and without, so you guys can see the difference. And I'll be shooting it off of the Atlas bipod in the Saber chassis, probably with a bag on the back, you know, for all the testing, so you guys will get a really good feel for how things are going. So with that, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope this video brightened your day a little bit and you'll use it as a resource. Please use the FX Crown Continuum video tuning guide as a resource, as well as the Air Venturi Avenger. Everything you can learn in those two videos in here will be very applicable to your tuning of any FX. I know a lot of you want to go and run and watch my FX Impact tuning guide, which is also on this channel, but that's really pretty outdated. And that was a guide that I put together when I was cutting my teeth, learning how to tune. And now it's getting fun and easy. So, you know, there's a natural evolution to those guides. And as I learn, I like to pass that on to you guys so that it's fun and easy. So if you wish, AEAC Instagram is Hooked on Air. AEAC Facebook is Hooked on Air, or AEAC, or Airgun Exploration and Advancement channel. Loads of pictures and tech notes of my day-to-day on Instagram. And then I use Facebook for more of industry press releases, big photo packs, these kinds of things. There's a press release out on this new barrel and some new stuff that FX is doing. And so I'll probably put that up this weekend or Monday, so you guys have it on Facebook if you want to, or read the official factory stuff on the new Smooth Twist X Superior 123 and 137 liners. Thanks, guys. I'm going to go get some lunch. Hey, sorry. I just realized that I forgot to show you how to take the gun out of the Saber Tactical Chassis cradle. It's really easy, guys. So I'm just going to remove some of this accoutrement so that it's easy to manipulate. Get down to our bare chassis. All right, you're going to turn the gun over on its side. Make some more room here. Got stuff everywhere. Okay, I'm going to turn the gun over on its side so that you have access to the power wheel. If you have a power wheel, this is an optional accessory on this particular Dreamline. Some of them come standard with it. This one does not. Remember, this is part of that $150 tactical kit. Okay, inside there's a little bitty screw. All right, and you got to remove that wheel to get the gun out of the stock. All right, and if I remember, it's a 2 or 3 mil. No, it's a 2.5 mil. Yep, 2.5 mil. So counterclockwise. All right. Now, before you lift this out, there's a couple of little ball bearings and some springs. They're not going to like shoot out on you, but you want to lift very carefully because the grease is probably going to hold them in place. And if one drops, you want to be prepared for it or whatever. But I'm going to lift straight up on this. Perfect. So I've lifted straight up on the knob, all right? And if I turn the knob over, the little screw's going to fall out. So just remember that. There's that cam, by the way. Look at the center of this circle. See how that cam isn't perfectly round? It's kind of oblong. So as I rotate that, that's what's changing that pressure, increasing or decreasing the pressure on the hammer spring. Okay, so set that to the side. And what you're going to see, okay, you're going to see those two ball bearings. I don't want to lift it totally to the side because they'll fall out. Grease is kind of holding in those ball bearings. And then there's little springs underneath them. Normally I like to get a little magnet. I don't think I brought one out here just to pick up the two ball bearings, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. You can actually see that cam. Might as well just show you this in case you don't want to go watch the Crown Continue video. That cam actually runs up against this this floating spring. See? Right there. Runs up against that. And as you adjust the cam, it's increasing or decreasing tension on this floating hammer spring. That's the design. That's the FX design. All right, so I'm going to get a 3mm and I'm going to get a 1/8. Now, a 3mm is what you need, but I wound up kind of hogging out my two screws and had to go to a 1/8 on one of them, so you might need both. But over here on the bottom of the gun, you're going to undo that one right there. And on the back of the gun, you're going to undo that one right there. And those are the two that hold everything together. Okay, so out that one comes. Let's see if our 1/8 fits on the bottom here. Yep. Okay, out that one comes. All right, now there's something to be aware of. This aluminum block right here, it comes with your Saber chassis, and it's kind of like a spacer, and it can fall out and fall on the ground and get damaged the way I did mine if you're not careful, because it fell right perfectly on the corner down on the tile floor in the kitchen the other day. But so make sure that the gun safety is up and down so it'll fit through that hole. And thank goodness my two little ball bearings stayed in place. This grease usually holds them in just fine. Okay, and I'm simply going to just pull it out. There goes one ball bearing. All right, so that just comes right off, right? Just going to set that to the side so you guys can see this. And don't fall. Here's the spacer. It's just a free-floating spacer. What I like to do when I put it back together is I'll set this in the cradle, kind of like nose first, and then slide the spacer in and drop the back end in. But here's, if you guys have never seen this before, this is FX's floating hammer system. Pretty cool. And where I was telling you before where you adjust the internal hammer spring, just a little Allen in it, just like that. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. And that's adjusting. They're rotating that little guy up here that sits on the cam. And so you have an internal adjuster and an outside adjuster, and it gives you great flexibility. We made the thing perform between 50 and 100 foot-pounds, basically, which is kind of amazing. So, yeah, that's your 4.8-pound deal, less the scope, and then your 10.9. Oops, there goes one of the ball bearings. I heard it. I don't know where it went. But see, that's what can happen to you. I'll have to look for it in a little bit. But they'll fall out of there. And then you can actually see now, since the bearing fell out, you can see the little spring in the inside. Those don't usually fall out. It takes something. But grease just holds that in. And then when I place this back on, I'm going to go straight down. Like if I took it off on max, put it back on max so that you don't get screwed up. Okay? I think that's really, really it now. So we're like totally done. So catch you guys in probably 2 weeks, weather permitting, once I get out and finish get the full review filmed up, and then I'm usually a week in the office putting the video together. So it's about a week of work on both sides. All right, see ya. Got it. Told you that magnet can be helpful.